Hello, good morning, everybody. If you can show us your videos, there you go. Love it. Love to see faces. Hello. If you're joining us by phone, that's totally okay as well. I will say that today, if you are on the phone watching or driving, don't watch, please, if you're driving. But if you are on the phone, they are going to show several things on the screen that might be really important. So hopefully you'll have an opportunity to pull over or to be able to access a screen to view everything. But welcome everybody. Good morning. My name is Patrick Miles. I am the Director of Social Innovation at United Way's Venture Forward. I'm excited to have you here. This is one of very many workshops and classes that we have planned for the next couple of months. And we continue to do things like this to offer professional development to our social sector professionals like you all. So thank you for joining us this morning. A couple things, just some housekeeping things before we get over or get started, and I turn this over to today's facilitators. First off, we're going to be using the chat quite a bit. So if you can open up your chat window, that would be wonderful. We're going to capture some questions that you might have as we go through, or every once in a while, we may do a quick poll or ask you to respond through that. Also, if you can, if you'll rename yourself, something we like, just because we want to see what, who's on the call. To do that, find your name, click the three little dots in the upper right-hand corner, select rename, and then just put your name, comma, or slash, or whatever, and then your agency. And abbreviations are okay. If you just want to use your first name, also okay. That just helps our facilitators know where you are from as well, okay? And then lastly, I believe we're going to record this. And so I have to tell you legally that we are going to record this. This will be available in a follow-up. We'll send you the recording link. So that you can access this afterward in case you forgot some nugget of truth that Ashley and Lynn have shared that you want to like, well, wait a minute, what did they say? All of that. And then lastly, I just want to also say that you guys are all here, QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks in general. That must mean that you will have accounting or finance responsibilities at your organization. Well, one thing I just wanted to say is that we are looking ahead towards the next year and starting to organize opportunities to pull you guys together on a regular basis, just to share best practices, maybe some challenges and frustrations that you all experience, and how can we work together to kind of get through those sort of things, or perhaps explore other opportunities to advance and learn together. So just kind of keep an eye out on those future finance and accounting we call them circles, activities in the future, okay? So with us today, I have Ada Bobbitt. She also works at Venture Forward, and she's going to be helping to manage a lot of the chat here and technical stuff. So if you have questions there, please direct them to her. And without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Lynn and Ashley from HR Business, and just thank you for having them on here. They are experts in QuickBooks. This is not the first time we've had them on here, and we get amazing response and feedback just about the level of education that they provide for everybody who uses at least this platform, but also just in general, finance and HR kind of solutions in general as well. So Lynn, thank you for being here. Ashley as well. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you for that nice introduction. And I know Ada said we had maybe 8 people we were anticipating. Looks like we've got 5 right now. So if people just start coming on, we'll do that as well. But I know a few people on this call. I know you're not like new at QBO. So, but I do want to just ask people really quick if they'll put in the chat. Well, let's see. Rodney, are you at the theater center? Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, that's right. Okay. So yeah, new to this, so I'm trying to catch up.
Yes, so I thought that was you. I was like, wait a minute, I think that's him. It's been a long time since I've seen you up here on the Signal Mountain Playhouse, I think so. So that's great. And so Shauna, you're with Girls Inc. Tell me real quick about your experience with QBO. Oh, you can turn off your mic. Yeah. There you go.
I'm sorry, my experience with
QBO.
QuickBooks Online. Yeah, our challenges, so we've been on it. My biggest challenges were taking over from a previous set, I'll say, of CFOs. And so my biggest thing was cleanup, having to do a lot of that. Like, for example, there was over 120 classes. So just trying to figure that out. And there are some things where I just had to say, like, do not use, and then form new stuff. And then I guess the biggest part we're trying to move into now is tracking of grants in QuickBooks. So I had tried that once and didn't work out. So I'm back on Excel spreadsheets, but that would be something amazing if we could actually track expenditure of grants in QuickBooks where it doesn't affect the financials.
Right. Okay. We won't really touch base on that's a deep dive in grants today, but we will talk a lot about those classes, so, and Leanne Cooper knows a lot about those classes, so we've helped her set up some with them. So Leanne, is there anything specific today you're looking to find out, or just trying to hone in your skills? All right.
Yeah, she's on mute.
You're on mute. Sorry. If you go to the bottom down left-hand corner, you can click that little mute button off. You should be able
And
to.
if you called in, you may have to unmute your phone.
Oh, that's true. And if you can't,
Got it.
Oh, gotcha.
Did that work?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I just like to find my skills and learn anything else you guys have to offer. So
that sounds great. And Jennifer, how about you? Are you on QuickBooks Online?
I'm completely new to all of this. I work for the Generosity Trust for most of my job. And then I have a friend that's starting the Brock Center and he's using QuickBooks. We might be QuickBooks Desktop, but I figured any kind of information would be helpful. So I'll kind of just take what I can.
That'll be great. And Allison, how about you? And Allison, if you can unmute, or maybe yeah, there you go.
We just transitioned from QuickBooks Desktop. We had scheduled to start it mid-March, so we happened to jump on the bandwagon right before everyone else was forced to do it for COVID and working from home. And I've just been trying to train myself. It's been pretty hard to get help from QuickBooks. So I've just been doing as much training as I can.
Okay.
So
great. That's perfect. And Debbie, how about you? I wasn't sure who you were with. If you're calling in and you're on mute, there you go.
Hey, good morning. It's Debbie Boggs with the Bethlehem Center, Lynn.
Oh, with the Bethlehem Center.
Yes, it's been a while since I've seen you, so I thought I need this morning.
Oh my goodness, that's great. Well, hopefully they've been on QuickBooks for a while, online for a while now, but we'll let you learn something real quick. Well, without anything else, I'm going to share my screen really quick and go ahead and get started. And I want this to be interactive, so I'm glad you guys have your little video on, so I can kind of tell if I see nodding heads that I'm going down the right track and everything, because I really want to make sure that I'm helping you with the situations you need, and I can just kind of fast forward if you're like, we already know that, so it's harder online to get those cues. When I'm in person, it's much easier. So I appreciate any help I can get. I'm not as great online as I feel like I am in person. So Ashley Lamar is with us, and this is our group of QuickBooks trainers. Really quick, I'll tell you, this is us out on our porch in Red Bank, Tennessee, and this is all we do. We teach and train QuickBooks. We also have a human resources side as well. So we do outsourced HR and outsourced QuickBooks and bookkeeping. We do other bookkeeping platforms, but pretty much just QuickBooks. So we love to support nonprofits, and that's one of the reasons I called and asked, hey, can I do another program? Because it's just really hard right now for nonprofits, because one, your programs are probably increased in need, and then your income and donors are probably falling off a little bit. You're not able to have any kind of fundraisers except online, and it's just difficult to grab people right now and get what you need. So nonprofits are being squished pretty tight, and if you were lucky enough to get a PPP, that's great, but not everybody was able to kind of get it together and get one or get approved. So we know how hard that can be. So our moderator today is Ashley, and she's going to be moderating the chat. And so if there's a question, just please feel free to pop it in there, and then she'll just, interrupt me to say, hey, can you go back over that? I do have a tendency to move pretty quickly. I try to get a lot of information in here. And speaking of that, we have the this PowerPoint. Well, one, it's recorded, and two, it is I downloaded everything to a PDF, and either Patrick or Ada will be emailing that to you. So you'll have the slides, when we finish. So you'll be able to go back and see. But a lot of the stuff I'll be doing live too. I'll be opening up a sample company and doing it live. So
Yep,
just
there's a handout for today's class in the chat. So if y'all
you
want to
did?
follow along with us there, then it's already ready for you.
Oh, good. So yeah, grab that handout, and you can always, put notes on it or whatever you need. So, but one of the things I want to talk about, so we have some people here that have been on QBO, some people just moving from desktop to QBO, but most of you probably at one time were on QuickBooks Desktop. And QuickBooks Desktop they had a wonderful nonprofit platform, and it was great. It was the standard for all nonprofits. And so this past couple of years, they have this new QuickBooks for nonprofits, and it was kind of okay for the last year, but now it is like amazing, and really no reason to stay on desktop really at all. It does everything that your QuickBooks Desktop will do, plus a whole lot more. And I'll show you some of the whole lot more that'll get you excited about QBO. So the main thing we talk about with QBO when you go from a desktop application to a cloud-based application is stop entering data. When you go to QBO, as some of you know, you sync your file with your bank, and maybe you have a PayPal account. People are donating online. Maybe you have a credit card and things like that, or Square, whatever it is. You can sync it with that, and all the information comes in automatically. With desktop, you had to log in, go to the bank, download from SunTrust, put it in a special file, upload it, and cram it in there. And sometimes it worked, and sometimes it didn't. And some of the banks are stopping that download feature. It's called an IIF file, if you're familiar with that. That is still pretty standard with the bigger banks, but a lot of the smaller banks can't afford to keep up with two sets of developers to develop online and for the desktop. So the desktop as we know it will slowly stop syncing and stop working with all the integrated apps. Now it'll still work with things like Kindful, but all your donor management systems probably, but in the next 3 or 4 years, the donor systems will probably stop syncing with it. It's just too expensive to try to keep that up when not many people are using it. So stop entering your data, and you just manage the data. With QuickBooks Online, you don't have to enter anything. You just accept the data as it comes in. So you need to know what tools you need for this accounting software. Find apps that will bring everything together. And it really helps you be a little more transparent about your spending, the spending of the nonprofit. It lets the treasurer get the reports they need, and maybe the director, and maybe the program person needs a specific income by program. This QuickBooks Online allows you to do that a little bit easier than the desktop. And we always talk about leveraging apps. And so, some of the I'll go over some of the apps later on that you can see integrate. And some of you already have that integrating, but it's just important to know that you don't have to enter this data. Just let the computer do the work for you. So we found that people that moved from desktop to QuickBooks Online cut their bookkeeping down at least 20–30%. A lot of people cut it in half if they were doing it the long, hard, laborious way, or if they were a large company that just wrote hundreds of checks. Yeah, we're not doing that anymore. We're going to do everything online, and we're going to let the computer do all the work for us. So QuickBooks is a true cloud-based application, and as you know, you have to log in online to do it. It backs up every second, and your data is always there. So if your computer goes down or your computer crashes on a desktop, you could lose your data if you're not backing it up properly. So with QBO, you just go to another computer and open it up, or go to your phone and open it up, and your data is there, and it's protected. It's got a pretty cool pretty cool cybersecurity on that as well. Parts of your data are actually stored in like 4 different countries, and then they have to bring all of that data together to be able to make your file. So even if someone got into one data center, it wouldn't stop your file. They'd have to get into all kinds of data centers. So it's very, very, very safe, and even more safe than your banking encryption. So, but when you save time, you save money, right? Because then that's more time you have to go and work on the programs. So, well, I was going to say, please put in the chat, but since there was just a few of you, I've already asked that question. That's fine. I wanted to kind of get a feel for what we needed to talk about. We talked about QuickBooks Online loves apps, and it's basically built for plugins. So you may be using some other software, and it may sync with QuickBooks Online, and it may be something you want to look at. But and Ashley will tell you too, not all things need to sync just because they say they sync. Sometimes it's better not to have them sync. And one of those might be like a CRM. You know, Salesforce has a great discount for nonprofits, and people will want to sync Salesforce in with QuickBooks, and that's fine. But then you end up trying to manage 2 databases. You've got your Salesforce where people are maybe, I don't know, making donations, or you've got your newsletters, and then you're pulling them into QuickBooks, and maybe they're just on a newsletter list, but not a client. And then you've got all this kind of junk in there that you don't really need. And it sort of fills your QuickBooks up with data that maybe isn't as important to the accounting side of your business. So QuickBooks has an open API, and that means that they give you how to sync with QuickBooks. So if some of you may have a custom, you know, CRM or donor management system that somebody made for you, 10 years ago, and QuickBooks has that open API, so you could get a developer to move it into QuickBooks if you needed to as well. And QuickBooks has a whole department. They'll do it for you for a fee as well. But I always tell people, just call us or ask us first, and we'll be like, oh my God, please don't do that, because we've usually been down that road with somebody and ended up, costing a lot of time and money to back all that stuff out if it really didn't work the way we thought it should, or it just jumped up QuickBooks. So, whoops, I'm sorry. Let me go back. So the apps, again, will enhance your QuickBooks Online experience, and don't be afraid of them. Companies that automate their processes, they have higher profits because there's less mistakes, and there's less things that they have to go back and review and look at. You can go to apps.intuit.com, and you can just look at all the different apps that they have. There may be one that you like or that's specific to your needs. This is just an example of a payment app. This is bill.com. And so right now, when everybody's trying to work from home, and you've got bills that need to be approved, and maybe you're the director and you're working at home, or you're the bookkeeper and you need to get the director to approve bills, and it's just awkward right now. So moving to QBO makes that a lot easier. Some people will just queue the bills up and say, hey, director, can you log in and check the ones you want to pay? And that's fine. But if you're a larger company, you have a lot of bills, and maybe there's a tiered way of getting these approved, or your bylaws tell you they have to be approved if they're by 2 people. If they're over $10,000, then an app like bill.com is really cool, because it syncs right with QuickBooks. It's a little app, and you put it on your phone. Everybody can have it on their phone, or you have it on your desktop too. And whenever you have a bill, you just email that bill to bill.com. It OCRs it. That means it does the optical character recognition. It creates a digital image. It keeps the regular image. And then you can put your stamp on it. Lynn Talbott approves this. And then once you approve it, it goes to the next level where the bookkeeper can say, okay, well, these have been approved. These are all approved by Jennifer. So now we're going to pay them. Or you can just look on your phone. If you're the director, you just go at night, open up your phone, and you're like, approve, approve, approve. You just swipe to the right, approve, and they're paid. Bill.com pays them. They either ACH it if it's like EPB or a big company, or they print a check and mail it to the person. Say it's just a contractor or something like that. And there's a fee for it, of course. It's probably about $40-50 a month, and I think 30 or 40 is the base, and then it's like $1.25 a bill, and ACH is less. So, but it's really a great way, you know, and you think 50 or 60 bucks is nothing if you've got a lot going on and people don't have to drive all over the place to try to approve bills. No stamps, no checks. You don't have to buy all the checks. So it really pays for itself pretty quickly. And if you only have 1 or 2 bills, that's not, you know, a good system. But so here's just some benefits of QBO for nonprofits. You know, you can access anywhere, anytime, on any platform. If you've got a Mac, if you've got, you know, a iPad or whatever you have, you can access QuickBooks, and that's really the main benefit. Is anybody can get into it as long as they have a password and an ID, and it does the 2-part authentication. It pings your phone for a little code if you're logging in from a new IP address. And that keeps it safe, just like your bank. So mobile apps, we talked about that. You're going to really decrease the amount of paper you need. When we moved from desktop, we used to service, you know, because we've been in business forever, we used to service mostly desktop clients, and now we're QBO. When you come to our office, you do not see filing cabinets and no filing cabinets, paperwork, nothing. Matter of fact, you know, we don't even have to be in our office anymore. Most of our employees are working from home. And you just save everything right into QuickBooks. So QuickBooks has a little file. You can save all your accounting information, your bank statements, all your bills, all your receipts, everything right there. Anybody can look at it. And that's really important for nonprofits. I've always felt like, you know, with nonprofits, you have to be really transparent about everything, because you know, if you're large enough where you're having an audit, then, you know, your information is, your bottom line information is public, and you want to be able to just say, hey, this is what we did. This is the receipt from Lowe's that said we bought this, you know, for this program, and you or the treasurer or, you know, whoever's working in it can see that. Maybe the board of directors, you know, wants to ask something, and it's all right there. Now, QuickBooks Desktop, you got, you know, this and that. You've got files everywhere. People make copies of every check they've ever made. You don't need to do that anymore. That's not a requirement for nonprofits, even though it's ingrained in you to do that. You don't have to do that as long as you have an electronic record of everything, including I-9s and all your employee paperwork. You do not have to have hard copies. So that's like the coolest part for me, is that you can manage your nonprofit in the QuickBooks Online. You can do a lot there. It automatically downloads the bank. We talked about that. You can have multiple users in it at the same time. If you know about desktop, you've got to go buy extra seats, and you got to be sure not to be on top of each other. And if you try to do something and someone else is logged in, it says you can't do it, and the multi-user, and it's a pain. You have to set up a network, and often they get broken, and people are working on 2 different forms, you know, platforms, they don't know it, and files, and they come together. It's a nightmare. So in QuickBooks, I can be in a file, Ashley can be in a file, the director can be in a file, and the treasurer, all 4 of us could be in it, and you wouldn't even know it or recognize it unless you accidentally bumped onto the same check that you were trying to edit at the same time. It would say, hold on, Lynn Talbott's currently editing this, let her, you know, finish it up. And that's really all. Other than that, you wouldn't know. So what happens when clients come to us and they're like, we just need to get all this stuff cleaned up, and we're kind of behind, or we need to get everything reconciled, and we've got 8 different accounts. I can put 4 different employees on it. I'm like, you know, Ashley, you're going to reconcile the credit cards, and so-and-so is going to reconcile Square, and so on. And we get it all done in like 2 days, whereas it would take you forever to do, because we can all work in it at the same time. You've got your automated invoicing and things like that, the recurring, if you've got maybe memberships or something like that that you want to do. And they're all emailed. You just set them up on a recurring, like maybe you have a annual, you know, membership. You just set it up. You send Lynn Talbott a $50, you know, invoice every, you know, December, and you just say do it until, you know, in perpetuity, until she says stop, and you forget about it. It goes out, they click the button, they pay it, it's in your account. No more mailing stuff. You can mail letters, of course, those are very helpful to getting, you know, money as well. But this would just be for like your regular routine memberships, or that donors maybe they have regular donors, and that's really cool. So you would send the invoice, and you would sync it up to the Intuit merchant service account. Many of you probably have that. It doesn't cost anything to sign up for it. And then it's called like a click to pay link. And I love click to pay links. You probably do too, because you get a bill and it's like, oh, I just want to pay it right now. And then I want to pay it with my credit card because, I want my little points and I just want it done. I don't want to mail a check or anything. So when you send somebody a click to pay invoice, you've got a much higher likelihood that it's going to be paid, and it's going to be paid sooner, like that day, versus sitting in the mail and then 3 or 4 emails later, you're going to have to get them. So that's a really cool option. And if you don't have Intuit Merchant Services, you're welcome to put that in the chat, and we'll call and tell you how to turn that on. And like I said, it doesn't cost anything until you use it. And then when you use it, it's like the fees change all the time, but it's the same fees as Square and, PayPal and Stripe. They're all of them are going to be very similar when you get to the bottom line, and they compete with each other all the time. So that's great. All right, so how does my accountant or bookkeeper access it? So if you've got a CPA that does your annual audits, you're going to want to sign, you're going to want to go to the accountant, tab to invite them, and they will you'll go, you go to the accountant tab, you'll invite them, and they'll have access to it, and they can do your audit right from there. QBO allows 2 accountants to join. So like your accountant has a special accountant portal like we do, and we can do like certain things that you can't do. And we can run reports, and we can batch enter a lot of things that maybe you can't do. And we get overall information and an overview of how the company's doing and who's doing what. We have audit trails, so we can kind of go dig deeper if we need to say, who keeps deleting these checks that have been posted and cleared and reconciled? Who's deleting those? We just go back and find it. We're like, all right, stop doing that. they cashed, That's one of the things about QuickBooks is if it's cashed, if it happened at the bank, I don't care if you don't think it happened. It happened at the bank. You can go do whatever you need to do to recode it. But if it happened at the bank, it happened, and you've got to deal with it. So you can't just delete it. So everything's real time, unlike desktop, where a lot of people do after the fact bookkeeping. They'll go in just when they're writing checks, and at the end of the month, they'll go in and load all the data in, and you have to wait a month or so to get your data. QuickBooks is real time. You can run a profit loss or a statement of activity and your balance sheet anytime, and it should be up to date as long as you've cleared the bank feeds. If everything's sitting in the bank feeds, it's obviously not going to be up to date. But that's why we encourage people to go every single day to their QuickBooks, look at that bank feed, and add those little items that are there. Because in general, we're all going to remember what we did the last week or who went to Walmart. If you've got a lot of people in there, you go using the credit card, you're like, wait, who went to Walmart? And you need to go get that receipt, right? If you wait a month, everybody's going to be like, who did that? And the receipt's long gone, and you're just kind of like, God, that's not really good control features, So that's what that is. So it's updated all the time, and if you've been on QBO for a while, you will notice that it updates all the time. They move things around, and you open it up, and there'll be a little window that says, "Hey, see what's new." And sometimes it's super annoying because they just move stuff. You can't find it. You don't know why they moved it. And I don't know why they moved it. They don't tell us. And then other times you're like, oh, cool new feature, So they add features all the time. And they've probably added, I would tell you, at least 100 new features just this year that make QuickBooks Online better than QuickBooks Desktop. And this is just to let you know, you can log in on any browser. It's not a big deal. QuickBooks Online is so common now that it works across all platforms. It was kind of built on to work best in the Chrome platform. It doesn't mean it's always perfect in there. It just means if you're having trouble in another browser, let's just say you're a Microsoft Edge person, and you open your QuickBooks and it says something silly like file not found, or you don't have access. And that means that the browser is not quite up to date yet with the QuickBooks. The QuickBooks is updating all the time, so the browsers are having to get updated too. And just sometimes you'll catch it before they've gotten together. Almost always Chrome will work, and I've never had an incident where it hasn't worked. But if you're in one browser, even in Chrome, and you start getting a weird message like, you don't have access to this file, just log out, log into Edge or whatever, Safari, whatever you're in, and then it will be fine. So just know that it is a platform that, if you have a lot of windows open and you got a lot of stuff going on in your browser, you don't clear your cache out of your browser, QuickBooks will try to go back to your old QuickBooks that you opened up last week, and it's kind of fighting with each other. It's the way I see it. So clearing your cache on your browser is important. That's when you go to the three little dots up in the right hand corner of Chrome, and it says, something quick something anyway. It's like clear your browser, and just clear your browsing history, once a month or so, and that should take care of it. So I just like to tell people, if they get frustrated, don't call QuickBooks, just go clear your browser history, or just open it in another browser and it'll be fine. All right, tips for the newcomer, and we just say keep it simple. As somebody was saying, I think it was the Girls Inc., when you take over, this is very typical of nonprofits, especially some places like Bethlehem Center, places that have been around for like 80 years. Well, guess how many people over 80 years have decided that they like their chart of accounts. They want these accounts and they want these accounts. And then some, accountant will come in as treasurer, and they're going to redo it all. And they add another 200 chart of accounts. And then that was back in the 80s, and you've got it. And you're like, what the heck? I can't even function because I have to scroll for 20 minutes to find the right chart of account. And even then you're confused if that's the right one. You have to go look to see if that chart of account's even been used. So we do a lot of cleanup, and you just need to go hide all those things. I'll show you, and remind me, Ashley, if I forget to show you how to hide chart of accounts if they're just, driving you crazy. And then I'm going to show you how to merge two chart of accounts, because sometimes people will create something and then 2 years later create something, and then 10 years later, you're like, these are really the same thing. Somebody just worded it different because in their head, those words made sense on the chart of accounts. But in reality, it's the same function. It's cost of goods or whatever it is. And so I'll show you how to merge those so that you don't have all that craziness. You just got that one account and it makes sense to you. Because if you're the director or the treasurer, it has to make sense to you, and it has to make sense to the people that you're giving it to, the grant people. They're like, I need a report that looks like this. You're like, now I got to go create all this stuff. Well, maybe not. Maybe that's just a suggestion on how they want it to look like, and you don't have to reword all your chart of accounts or create all new ones. We can help you kind of figure out how to do that the best way. So keep it simple. I can't stress that enough. And I would say when we go into nonprofits, the first 90 days is seeking advice from the accountant and from the auditor and from the treasurer and from the director. Like, do you really need this account? And everybody's looking at each other like, I don't know. It's like, okay, if nobody needs it, it's gone. And then how about this one? And that's kind of what you have to do as well. I'm going to give you a link to a sample file, or actually in the handout, you'll see the link to a sample QBO file. And that's always fun to go grab it if you want to try something, but you're a little nervous about doing yours. Go to the sample file and see how when you merge files or whatever, delete files, what happens, hide things you don't need. There's a live community feature, and that's up in the right-hand corner, and that's pretty good. It's just a question mark, help, and it's pretty good. You'll want to get used to wording your questions properly, and sometimes you have to reword it, and then you'll get the answer that you need. But that live community feature is monitored all the time by the Intuit developers and by people like me who are Intuit, QuickBooks specialists, and we'll answer questions in there when Intuit, sometimes the developers will answer, here's an article, you're like, well, that article doesn't tell me the answer to how to formulate this grant and the receipts from the grant. Like, that article tells me something else, so we'll go in and kind of back up and try to answer questions. So it does, I would say it does help. I go to it sometimes too when they've added some feature and I'm like, well, I don't know how to do this now, and I'll go in there and look at it. So that little question mark, we call it, it's the help, but it's really live community feature. So we'll teach you how to, code everything you can to a rule in the bank feeds. That's a biggie, because QuickBooks Online brings everything into the bank feeds, and it sits there and says, hey, here's all the stuff that happened. Where does it go? Where does it go in your chart of accounts? And that's probably what you all struggle with, because your chart of accounts may or may not be what you consider, to be in proper order. And so we want to get it in proper order before we accept all of those things. And then we want to create rules. Whenever you see something coming from, Square, that's a donor, that's a donation, and whenever you see something, go out to EPV, well, that's utilities, and then later on, we'll show you how to break up some of those expenses to the proper programs if you need to report it by program to like a grant or a foundation or some kind of something someone's given you. You can duplicate a page. So in QuickBooks Online, you can just go up to that little top tab, right click, duplicate, and duplicate as many as you want. You can put your profit loss on one and your balance sheet on the other, and your invoices over here. And when you start doing stuff, you can see what happens on all of them. You can kind of go back and forth. Not unusual for me to have 8, 9, or 10 tabs open because I'm trying to correct a journal entry and I'm trying to go back and make sure that it's doing its proper thing in the balance sheet. And then I go back to the journal entry, go back to the balance sheet, to make sure we're clearing out things that you need. So that's a really good help with QuickBooks Desktop. Of course, you could open up multiple screens as well. And so in QBO, it's not as obvious, but you can open it up. And then in QuickBooks, since it is online, you do have to click that save button every time you go to a window. You've created a check, save and close, lower right-hand corner. Now, I will tell you that a Mac, when I have somebody in my office with a Mac, for whatever reason, just the way it projects on the image, it's like it's too big. And so that save and close button is just off the screen at the bottom. And so it's super confusing when you finish if you don't go to the right and scroll down and go, oh, there it is, save and close. So you may have to go and like minimize your screen, make it so that you can see the whole thing. And some people make their screens bigger, and then that save and close button is going to be off at the bottom, and you're going to forget, and you're going to X out, and it's not going to save, and then you're going to be like, what's going on? All right, so this is what I wanted to tell everybody. And so if you, hopefully, Jennifer, when you just started on QBO, you got the special one from TechSoup, and you didn't go straight to Intuit and pay the highest price. So we'll cross our fingers and hope that you did. If not, we can get that corrected for you. We have to do a little manipulation, but we can get it corrected for you. So TechSoup, if you're a nonprofit, you've probably heard of TechSoup. Just go to TechSoup.org, go to the QuickBooks one, and there you can get the QuickBooks Online Plus for $75 for the whole year. It's normally $75 a month for all of us for-profit people. But for nonprofits, $75 a year, that's so cheap. Desktop is like 3 times more than that. The QuickBooks Online Advanced, really cool. And I think, Leanne, we have the Advanced at your place, and Bethlehem Center does not have the Advanced, but they don't have a lot of integrated applications that they need it. But as your company grows and as you have more grants and you need to have some heavy hitting reporting, that QuickBooks Online Advanced lets you do some heavy hitting reporting as well. Really, really great. And it's $160 a year. It used to be $175, and now I looked today and I was like, yay, it's $160 a year for this amazing group. And it can have 25 users. It's huge. So the main distinction that you would do is if you have more than 250 chart of accounts, items in your chart of accounts, QuickBooks Online Plus maxes out at 250. So if you were on desktop and you had 400 chart of accounts, you would have to go to QuickBooks Online Advanced. It's only not even $100 more a year. Go for it. It's an awesome thing. And most people pay $175 a month plus tax, so it's like $185 a month, and you're getting it for $160 a year. So TechSoup.org, go there. You have to register your company. If you're not a member, you just put in your nonprofit ID number. It takes sometimes not quite 24 hours, maybe just the same day. They check to make sure you're still active and valid at that number, and they come back and they say, sure, order anything you want. You order it, and they give you a download link, and you can download it right there and start your QuickBooks. If you've already gone to Intuit and you're paying full price, we'll have to move you back down to desktop, go by the TechSoup, and then move it back up. We just did that for a couple nonprofit, about 3 nonprofits in town. we did that for, and it's a little bit of work, but it works, and it's the only way to get around it. All right, gosh, I'm just yakking away, 9:45. So do you need a CPA? You may already know this. If you're over 500,000 in revenue in Tennessee, you have to submit an audit annually by CPA. It has to be an independent CPA, and they have to charge you. Nobody can do an audit for you for free because that's not considered, I don't know, on board or whatever. So, and audits are generally going to be, you know, $3,000 to $6,000. So just kind of put that in your budget. Your board, you may require different levels. Your grant that you have may require different levels. So that's just the minimum is the 500,000. If you have a grant, maybe it's 200,000, and maybe your total is only 400. The grant may require that you have an audit because they want to make sure you're good stewards of the money. So look at the grants and look at the board requirements. Yeah, it has to be independent of all the employees, treasurer and director. If you bring in less than 50K, which is just a couple of these small, you know, nonprofits, maybe just some ones that are starting, you can file that 990 in, and it used to be just a postcard. They would send you a postcard and you just signed your name. If you were the director or manager of it or whatever, you would just sign your name that says this nonprofit has brought in less than 50,000, and that is it. There is no audit, and you just have to make sure that you can back that up, that you didn't bring in more than 50K. So in revenue. So that's kind of the way that goes. Any questions about that?
I'm going to interrupt you real quick and go back to a prior slide because we just had a question come in for it. So somebody wants to know, they already have QuickBooks Online through Intuit, and they're paying way more than what the TechSoup offers.
Yep.
Is there a way to transfer over to a TechSoup issued QuickBooks and save that money?
I know. Well, and that's what I was talking about. It really makes me mad. Just remember, anytime you call Intuit, you're talking to a salesperson. And even if you say they're a nonprofit, they know that TechSoup Intuit gives it to TechSoup to give away like that. But instead they sell it to you, and it just really makes me mad. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this. And I put it in the That's Your Forward thing, how to get your thing for just $160 a year, you know. So once you go to QuickBooks and you buy it at their highest price, you're at their mercy for the rest of your life. They will not help you. They're like, well, it doesn't transfer. There's no transfer. And you're like, and plus the QuickBooks for nonprofit is a little bit different. It's got your donors and all the, you know, it's got a little bit of different kind of reporting as well. So you will want the nonprofit version. And I'll tell you, the nonprofit version only came out, gosh, maybe it's been out 2 years, and really in the last, just since January, has it been, you know, really, really robust. So what you have to do is you can contact us and we can help you. We will drop it down to a desktop, and then you order, as soon as you just go to TechSoup and order it, we'll help you drop it down to a desktop. We have the desktop version, or if you've got it, we can show you how to do that. Then we have to load it back up to the new TechSoup one. And then we just cancel the other one and get rid of it. And like I said, we just did that for 3 or 4 people. And it takes maybe 2 or 3 hours if everything looks good. And so, you know, it's already in QuickBooks Online, so easy to take it down. And if it's already been in QuickBooks Online, it's probably going to go back up to QuickBooks Online with no problems. But Ashley can tell you, because she had one pretty big nonprofit that I don't know why, but it just blocked it, didn't it? It just was crazy.
Several times, but anyway, that's probably a different situation. So I guess, you know, the answer to your question is yes, there's a way to do it, but it's not supposed to be done that way. So it takes the QuickBooks ladies can do it though, but it takes some meandering around.
Yeah, and QuickBooks won't do it for you because they're like, nope, we got you at the highest price. They absolutely won't even talk to you about it. And so just talk to us. We'll get it for you. And you'll, even if it costs you $150 for us to help you get it over there, you'll get that money back, you know, in 2 months. So in 1 month if you're on the advance. So great question. Just to go over your income accounts, you've got, you know, you could have a variety of these: memberships and dues, donations, items or services, and then you'll have fundraisers. I mean, the donations will also be your fundraisers. And then of course, everybody's got grants, funding, or some type of, you know, endowment. Those are the different ones. So you just have to know that with the pledges, the FASB, the, you know, FASBA, the Financial Accounting Board, you know, Standards Board, they they establish really firm guidelines as to how pledges are counted in revenue. And so they say that pledges are revenue, even though you don't have it. And in this time of year, maybe people are pledging, had pledged and they're not really giving. So we tell people, and most of you probably already know this, not to do pledges unless you're like, United Way or something where of course they've got pledges and they report differently. But generally you're just going to call it memberships or dues. And then if they pay it, they do. If they don't, you don't have to count it as income and then reverse it back out that next year. And for nonprofits, you're not paying tax on anything that flows to the bottom line, but you're reporting that you've made this much money when in actuality, those pledges didn't come through and you didn't. So it looks like you've got all this money and you really don't. So we just want to have true financials. So, you've got unconditional pledges and all that kind of stuff, but you just need to make sure that you and the auditor, and at any time call your auditor and say, what should I not call these pledges anymore? And they can walk you through, for your organization, how that would do. Donated materials or services, in-kind contributions, how do you record those? Those are kind of awkward. Some auditors tell us to record them. Some kind of just put them over on the balance sheet and let them wash out, a couple years later. So there's different ways to do things, and we always tell people just talk to your CPA, your treasurer, or your auditor if you have one, because the auditor is going to tell you, like, no, if you put that there and I audit your books, it's going to look like this. So I need you to, if you're want it not to count, it needs to go here, and they'll tell you so that you can stay in line with the FAFSA rules. So most of you know there were new rules for FAFSA in 2018. And I know I'm not talking about QuickBooks, I'm talking about accounting, but it ties into why I'm going to create your QuickBooks, show you how to do your QuickBooks. So the most important rule was that expenses now had to be classified by, they call it function and nature. You would probably call it programs. What programs do we have? Each expense should be reported by their natural expense account in the program. So if you're doing advertising, then you do advertising for the golf tournament. And then you do advertising for whatever else you're doing. Maybe it's a reading program, and then you do advertising for something else. And even maybe that advertising is Facebook ads or, printed material. You can't just say advertising and it just goes to everything. If that advertising is specific to a program, we need to be able to categorize it. And we do that through classes. So that's how QuickBooks wants you to classify things, is we use classes. We don't create 8 advertising expense accounts under every single program. That's the old way, and that's the way old accountants used to do it. But now we just say advertising, and then when you click the button, you can run a report that says advertising by class. I think I heard somebody say they had like 120 classes, and of course those were probably unique programs that happened back in the 70s or 80s that aren't relevant right now, and those classes need to be turned off so that you just have the 4 or 5 relevant ones working. And we want the classes to be classes that are overall reaching programs, and the way that you report to your auditor, or the way the auditor wants it reported. And again, something you have to talk to your auditor about. So you have to disclose the method used to allocate the expenses. So let's say you have and I'm thinking of like the Bethlehem Center. They've got a big building and they've got lots of programs going on. They've got like Read to Lead, and they've got, kids come in the afternoon, maybe, playing basketball or doing something in the gym, and they've got maybe a summer camp going on here. Well, when that EPB bill comes in, utilities, they want to be able, because that's probably a big bill. That's a big old school and a big old building. They want to be able to allocate those across the different programs that during that month were active. And that's totally fine. And so the FAFSA rules just say you just need to show us, disclose the method that you did that. And so you would get a little spreadsheet. You'd be like, okay, 30% goes here, 10% here, 10% here, and the rest just goes to baby overhead. And you could back that up with data, like these are the people that were in the building during those months. And then we would just create a journal entry to disperse that month's expenses by class. We would just grab the little classes and say 30% here, oh, that's $72, and then you do it like that. So that's how your classes are going to work. And that's how FASBA wants you to create that, so that you might as well create them correctly so that when you give it to your auditor, they don't have to spend 20, 30, 40, 50 hours creating it and then charge you $10,000 for an audit when all the data is in QuickBooks. It's just not properly tagged. So other requirements for large organizations, or if you have underwater endowments, or if you have new classifications within your asset accounts that have restrictions, or if they're temporarily restricted, permanently restricted, those would have to be accounted for too. Now that's the old way, was you had to report by, if unrestricted, temporarily restricted, and permanently restricted. And maybe there were other restrictions too, I don't know about, but I remember those. That's how you used to report them. But now you report them by this new classification expense rule. All right, let's rock on. Let's see. A word about undeposited funds. Most of you know this if you're in accounting. I just have to go over it because people kind of tend to want to gloss over this. So it's a default account in a chart of accounts. You can't get rid of it. If you try to delete it, it will pop back up the next day with a little, I think with a little 1 by it or a star by it. It has a star by it. And it's like, you can't delete that. Same with accounts receivable. You have to have undeposited funds and you have to have accounts receivable. You don't have to use it, but you have to have it. So this undeposited fund temporarily holds your payments that you've received until you go to the bank to create a deposit. So if you're somebody that maybe has little checks, trickle in, and maybe there's some cash stuff going on, or you're selling items. I know we have a lot of people like thrift shops and things, and you've got cash coming in. Sometimes you do need to go to the bank and actually make deposits with checks and cash. And sometimes you might not go every day. You might hold some checks. You're gonna, accept a payment, have some cash, and then maybe on Friday you go and make a deposit. And so the undeposited funds holds all of those payments or receipts until you go to the bank. So your deposit in QuickBooks has to match the bank deposit. You can't go and deposit $100, $100, $100, $100 in QuickBooks and then go deposit whatever I said, $500 on Friday, because when you go to reconcile, QuickBooks it can't. You think it could add, but it can't add those up. And it's looking for the $500 deposit and it can't find it. And you're like, where is it? Well, it's these 5 little 100 ones. And now you've got to go back, delete them, add them all to the same account, put it in there, and then it matches. So the name of the game is don't ever accept a deposit from QuickBooks from the bank feeds unless it's matching something. And if you have things for it to match, some people just accept donations and they don't match them in QuickBooks, and that's okay. But you can, way you get things into undeposited funds is you create a deposit, or you give somebody a sales receipt, and a sales receipt means it's a invoice and like a deposit all at the same time. It happened, right there. So that's just the undeposited funds account. So setting up your chart of accounts is kind of key. It's kind of the backbone to how you're going to manage your nonprofit going forward. It's just very important to be consistent. We talked about keeping it simple. If you were to get the QuickBooks Online Nonprofit, it comes with a chart of accounts that's sort of relevant and appropriate, and you can delete things or add things as you need them. QBO Plus only has 250. I don't know what the limit is in advance, but I think it's like 10,000 or something crazy, so you don't have to worry about it. And just remember, a category in the chart of accounts is not a vendor name. I mean, it's a category, so you can't have like a vendor name and have that as a category. So what questions do we have? I had my QuickBooks open, and of course it timed me out. So I'm going to open up a sample file here, but I'll take some questions while I'm trying to reload this again.
Yeah, so we don't have any questions in the chat, which means that if y'all do have a question that comes to your mind, if you want to just unmute and ask it, we're probably intimate enough that we could do that here and not have everyone talking over everyone.
Sure. All right. Y'all are ready just to rock on, huh? All right, give me just a second to get this sample company up and running. And as soon as I get it up and running, we'll put it up, and we'll just kind of go through a chart of accounts, and then I'm going to show you how to merge. and how to hide accounts in a chart of accounts. So that's what we'll do. So this company is a sample company, and it's a landscaping company. Sorry, QuickBooks won't give me be nice if they gave me a sample company for a nonprofit, but basically, it's gonna be the same. So this is a landscaping company, and over here at the left, yours should look very similar to this. This is where you create new items, and if you were to, I'm gonna let it finish loading. Okay, finally. And if you're to click on that, here's all the things. Now, in your nonprofit version, it says something like donors, and I don't know what it says. It says little, other things.
It says a revenue and expenditures, it's very fancy.
There you go. Yeah, so it's like a little bit, different, but all the same, you're still getting, the same chart of accounts. So there's your invoices and, receive a payment. These are all things, of course, you're not going to be giving out estimates probably for nonprofits that check and bill pays, things like that. And if you have payroll, QuickBooks does have a payroll feature. I will tell you that I'm not real fond of it. And Ashley can probably tell you too, we've had tremendous problems with QuickBooks Payroll Online in the past 6 months. And I'm talking like really bad problems. And I'm not really recommending it right now until they get their stuff together. I think QuickBooks grew really fast and they added a lot of features, and they changed their QuickBooks payroll features back in April and May. And whatever they did not roll it out properly, and we're having a lot of problems with it. Duplicate checks and people not getting paid, and just people getting booted out, and just a lot of problems. So we love Paychex, and we've moved about over 20 clients to Paychex in the last 6 months, and what a difference. It's really nice. The only benefit with QuickBooks Online is that you can take your you can do it in Paychex too, and I'll show you how through a time tracking program. But QuickBooks Online, if you're very small and you've only got a couple of employees, QuickBooks Payroll will probably work for you, because you could manage if something happened. You'd be like, okay, look, I'm just going to print your checks today. But if you have 50 employees and they're all over the place, and the checks didn't get queued up properly, or you have to print them, they didn't get direct deposited, that's a problem. But just a couple of people, generally not, if you feel like you can handle it. So in QuickBooks Online Payroll, inside your QBO, you can, kind of categorize and class a lot of their wages. So like if you've got somebody and all they do is just this program, you can just tag their wages to go to that chart of accounts to that program. It'll go to wages overall in the chart of accounts, but it will be classed and expensed to that program. Or maybe they do 3 programs, and you can actually divide it up and print it out, do it to the program. And that might be more detailed than you need, but some people, need that. So, and I'll just go through these real quick before we get to the chart of accounts, because I think we'll end up at the chart of accounts. And this is just the dashboard, and that's where we are right here. And you can hide stuff. Okay, QuickBooks is always trying to sell you crap. So just when you see it, usually it'll come up here, and you just click the hide button and just get rid of it. They're trying to sell you insurance and workers' comp and I don't know what else. Just click it off. And why? Oh, that's set up. So here's the invoice and stuff, and you can change these parameters to like this year, and it will change the information here. And some people having these visuals is really nice. Here's your bank feeds here, and if you wanted to, did they have a checking, a savings, and a MasterCard? And if you wanted to maybe change this order, because they come in just in the order that you connected them. Maybe you want your MasterCard first. See this little thing? I click the edit button, and I'm just going to grab it, and I'm just going to move it up there, and there you go. So you can move things around so that it works for you. A lot of nonprofits have like a lot of bank accounts. You've got grants and endowments and all this kind of stuff, and you might have 40 bank accounts. And for you, it might be good to have the endowments first, or whatever you want, or at least have the bank accounts lumped together. This is the banking tab, and so if you're new to QuickBooks Online, this is like the most awesome thing. You're gonna love it, because QuickBooks, these things just flow right into QuickBooks. Now this is a sample file, so it's asking me to go through. It thinks I don't know what I'm doing, and you can click on any of those buttons at any time. Here's that little help button I talked to you about. You can just click on that and ask it any question, and I guarantee somebody has asked it before and you won't be all alone. And then the search button here is, they have improved the search button. I will tell you, if you were just looking for, you know, $100 payment, and you're like, where did I put it? I swear it came in, but I can't remember like where I put it. You can just type $100 or whatever the amount is, and you can go find it. You can click, if you click on the search button, it gives you this advanced search option. And then you can, it'll list your recent transactions, because a lot of times you're doing something and you're like, you hit the save button and it goes, doo-doo, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, where did it go? Like, I don't think I meant to categorize it that way. You can go up here and it'll give you the most recent transaction that you just did, and you can find it real quick. Sometimes that's very helpful. But on this advanced search, I'm starting to get a frog now that I talking. So you can look through, of course, you're almost always going to want to look through all your transactions, because think of QuickBooks as just this huge database. The more information, the more specific you are about the information you put in, the better your search function is going to work. If you don't put vendor names on any of your you know, vendor payments, maybe they have it on the check, but you don't put it in QuickBooks. Well, it's going to be hard for me to say how many times have you paid blah blah landscaping. Well, I don't know, because you didn't put the name on it. I'd have to go to like repairs and maintenance and backfill it. So another thing about bookkeeping is just how precise do you want to be? And in nonprofits, I feel like most of y'all are pretty good about being very detailed. You're not going to leave the vendor name off, and you're not going to leave you know, invoice numbers off and things like that. So generally we would just do, like, you can do whatever you want. If you were looking for something, you can just say the amount is generally what I'm looking for. All transactions, the amount equals, and who knows, you know, what's in this sample file, but I'm just going to put $100. And oh, there's two things. There was a check, and then there was a credit memo. And hopefully this is one of the things I'm looking at. And if I wanted to, anything that's blue, you could just click and it would take me right to this, or I could just go open the check, and this would take me to Tony. This would take me to the check, and I could see what it was and then, you know, correct it. And you can always use these little back arrows here to go back, you know, up there. But let's go, we were in the banking feed, so we're going to go back to the banking feeds. All right, so that was the search feed. So the banking feed. So this is where the default's going to come to, is just this banking tab. Next to that are the rules, and these are the rules that you create, or you can let QuickBooks create it as well. Oh shoot, somebody's at my office. Oh gosh, want me to open the front door, so hang on. Oh gosh, let me just tell him to knock on the door. I'm so sorry. I had oh wait, there we go. All right. Okay, so these are the rules. Now there's no rules in here. This is a sample file, but we'll create a rule and we'll come back and look at it. Now, if you're opening your sample file or your file and looking at it, you may have a bunch of rules in there that maybe the person before you created or QuickBooks created for you. And some might be good, but some might be like, no, why are you creating that rule? And that can get very frustrating in the bank feeds, because you'll be like, why every time I have a check does it say, you know, Lynn Talbott? Why does it do that? Well, because at one point somebody wrote Lynn Talbott on a check and they hit enter, and there was a little button that said, do you want me to create a rule? And you may or may not have seen that. And when you hit OK, it created a rule. And then every check from now on gets labeled Lynn Talbott. And so we need to go in and delete those rules. So this is where you would go to the rules, go down here and look at them and read the rules. And it'll say, if this, then that. If it comes from EPB and it says EPB in the bank feed, then put it in utilities and then click save and close. If you don't like what it says there, just delete the rule. And when we create a rule, there's a little button over here. You can just, you know, delete the rule. And that's the easiest way to get rid of them. So you may want to check out those rules and just go delete away if you're like, you know, finding yourself doing all this stuff in the bank feeds that's driving you crazy. Okay, this is the receipt window. So some of you may or may not have ever kind of navigated over to the receipt window, but if you have the receipt app, you know, on your phone, you just open the app and press the little plus button, and it says, what do you want to do? Snap a receipt is the first option. snap a picture of the receipt, and that's all you do. It does the OCR, the optical character recognition. It puts a digital copy into QuickBooks, like immediately it reads it. And believe it or not, it uses AI and it uses all the data that all these, QuickBooks people, the 3 million QuickBooks people in the world are using. And it kind of tries to help you. And it says, hey, Delta, we know what that is. That looks like travel, because 9,000 people before you that had this little rule cut in from the credit card, not rule, but like the description in a Delta terminal, 9,000 of those people put it in travel. And so they're like, we're going to, turn travel green and give you a little, heads up, this should go to travel, So that's what it does. So the receipt comes in, and let's just say you went to lunch at, Big Chill, and then the receipt comes in and it reads it. It Big Chill, the date. It looks for the last 4 digits of your credit card or maybe debit card. And when it finds those on there, because it knows how to find it, it goes to that bank feed and it says, oh, I'm looking for a receipt for $20 for the Big Chill on this date with this credit card. And then hopefully the next day, voila, the bank fee comes in, $20. QuickBooks gets all excited and says, I have a match, and it creates a match button. And that's when you go and say, is this a match? Is this right? And you look at it and you're like, yeah, Big Chill, awesome. And when you click it, that receipt goes and attaches to the that transaction, and it follows that transaction wherever it goes. So the actual receipt, the picture of the receipt that you took will be on that, so that everyone will know. And that was when I was talking about how transparent it is. If you've taken someone to coffee or whatever, if somebody sees that, then it is what it is. This is what I did, and this is how I categorized it, and it's true. And you don't have to worry about keeping receipts in another folder and the auditor coming in and trying to audit all those receipts, because guess what? They're in QuickBooks. They don't have to audit them. They just click on it and go, oh yeah, Jennifer went and had coffee with Lynn and they talked about QuickBooks. And then, but you do have to write 2 things on the receipts, which you probably already know. When you eat lunch or dinner with anyone, you have to write it on the receipt before you take a picture, who you had, lunch with, and what the business purpose was. So it has to be business related. You're generally talking to people that you're collaborating with, donors or vendors, people that you're trying to get on board to your program, or even volunteers. Those are all legitimate lunches. So you write that on the receipt, and then that way the auditor sees it as well. And then if you're audited, if you are audited by the IRS, and they do audit nonprofits, that receipt will have the proper documentation already on it inside QuickBooks, and it's transparent. So this is kind of cool. So if we had receipts, they would show up down here, and then over here it would say I found a match, or I didn't find a match. Maybe somebody paid cash, or in some cases your employees may not have a credit card. Maybe they use their own funds and put the receipt in there to get reimbursed. And that's when you would that would clue you into, oh, I need to send somebody a reimbursement, and there's the receipt right there. Isn't that awesome? You don't have to go hunt for it or ask for it or wait a month and have them lose it. It's right there. So so that's how that works. Now for the receipt management, you can upload your bills too. So if you had a bill like your EPB or whatever, or maybe your rent bill or something like that, you can load that right into QuickBooks, and it will attach to that bill that you paid as well. Again, another way for your auditor to see, yes, this is the bill. It was for $900 and I paid it, and here it is. And so there's no question that that's where the money went, because, for nonprofits, I mean, and I mean, be a Debbie Downer, but the problem is we're all trying to do good, and we're all, wanting to be helpful and all of that stuff. But it's really easy for people to steal money from your nonprofit. People who are buying stuff and they're just not giving you receipts and things like that. And I want to tell you, we see it all the time. And it just breaks my heart, because sometimes you don't know if they're maybe abusing the credit card and buying personal stuff at Walmart, and then just telling you that they forgot the receipt. And then you're still like, well, where's the stuff you bought? Like we're doing this program, where's the construction paper, whatever you're looking for. And you have more things to do than to worry about every single receipt. And this receipt capturing is going to be like, look, it's mandatory. You've got the app, you take a picture of it, or if you don't want them in QuickBooks, they can email the receipt to this address. So right here, you can add a mobile phone or you can upload from the computer, upload from your Google Drive. Maybe there's a Google Drive you all share and you put the word receipts in it and they load the receipts in there. And then you click this button, grab it and throw it in here. QuickBooks OCRs it, matches it up. There it is in there. So,
Hey, Lynn, I'm going to interrupt you. We got a couple quick questions here, really good questions. So number one, really quick question about meals receipts. Do you have to physically put ink to receipt and write, who you were with and what you talked about before you upload it to QBO, or can you just add it on a memo line? I was with Lynn and we talked about accounting.
Well, the IRS says it has to be on the receipt. And so if you don't have it on the receipt, not a big deal for internal stuff. But if you're audited, you've got to go download all the receipts, print them all, write it on them, load them all back up. So we just say, go ahead and it's good business practice. And that's the practice for, for profit and for nonprofit. But it's basically a rule by the IRS. You have to write those two things on there, or that expense will not be accepted, and they might say it's personal or something like that. So so you just don't want to take any chances. So yeah, it's really just in case you get audited. And but for me, it's best business practices. I tell everybody, yeah, that's what you want to do, because nobody wants to get audited. But if you do get audited, you just want to be like, hey, here it is, everything's cool.
At the end of the day, we're all doing best bookkeeping practices to audit proof our businesses and nonprofits, right?
Mhm.
Another question that came in is, since we went over the robust receipt feature of QBO, and we also talked about integrated apps. So can you talk about what do you think is best between the receipt feature within QBO and Expensify, the receipt app? And that was just the app that was named. So if you have other app recommendations, you can talk about those.
Yeah. So if you're a larger company and you have a lot of expenses going on, and maybe those expenses aren't always tied to a company credit card or a corporate credit card, they're maybe using their own funds and you're just reimbursing them every month, and people are just out. I mean, I can see it now. So many people have to go out and buy stuff last minute. And if you're trying to support your programs, sometimes those things happen 2 or 3 times a day. And you need to be able to reimburse people. If you've got a lot of expenses going on, an expense management system like Expensify or Receipt Bank is another one. Receipt Bank's kind of pricey, but Expensify has been around a long time. Like it's one of the first ones before QuickBooks Online was even invented. Expensify was around, but it's a real robust system. It has layers of expenses, so that like if you have say 50 employees and they had managers, and the managers have to approve it, then the treasurer had to approve it, and then the director had to approve it. You can set all those parameters up. So they have their phone, they take a picture, and actually Expensify syncs with QuickBooks, and those receipts will come right in. But I would just manage them in Expensify so you wouldn't have to double match them, So Expensify is great. It's not too pricey. It's by user. I think it's a $30 or $40 base plus maybe 10 or 15 per user. If you had 40 users, you're going to be paying a lot of money for it, and it just doesn't seem like. I mean, if you needed it, that's fine. But if you had a lot of employees, it's just too much. Too much for a nonprofit to pay. Now they may have nonprofit pricing, but I would go to TechSoup.org and see if there is an expense management system, because you're talking different. This is just loading a receipt and attaching it to a transaction so that an auditor or a treasurer could see this. Look, this is where I went. I went to Starbucks, with Lynn, and everybody's cool. But if you need expense management system, that's a different story. That's outside of all of this. And really, we see a lot of nonprofits just going to giving out credit cards to their employees to stop all that madness of, giving an Excel spreadsheet, attaching all the receipts, somebody spending 4 hours managing all of that, hand entering them all into QuickBooks. That's like, who wants to do that? So you can do credit cards where you've got different names on the credit cards. And like right now, things like Capital One and, American Express, things like that, they have ways you just stop immediately somebody's credit card. You log on and go off Lynn Talbott, if they leave the company or something you think funny is going on. You can also limit all of their spending to just like $50 a day or $100 a week or whatever you want to do. And you can manage them very quickly, go in and cut them off, fast. You don't want to give them debit cards because debit cards is right to your operational account. You don't want it getting lost and somebody cleaning out your operation account. Whereas a credit card, if you just go put limits on it, that's it. And if it's been misused internally, you may have to take the cost for that. But if it gets lost or misused externally, they pick up the cost for that. You're not charged for that. So, but we do see people moving to doing more of that credit card. It just doesn't make sense to just have all that. I mean, I would die if somebody just came to my desk and threw a spreadsheet and boxes of receipts for like 8 different people. And I had to sit there for like 8 hours and match all that up. $8.22, $1.49. I would just die. It's a complete waste of time to me. That's just my opinion. Some of y'all might be doing that. And you're like, well, I don't mind. Well, I know you don't mind, but time is money. Go do something more productive and just give them a credit card and put parameters on it so that you can control it. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. And the person who asked said thanks. I think we're good.
Yeah. So the banking, I've got like 40 more minutes here, and we'll try to wrap it up in 30 so we can just open up for questions. So this is what the bank feeds look like. If you're familiar, you click on either one, and it down here it says here's the stuff that happened, and your job is to go and accept these. So this savings account says there's a $200 deposit, and evidently it's been made in QuickBooks. So QuickBooks said one record has been found, and up comes the match button. This little button over here, the action button, is what QuickBooks thinks that you should do with that. It's like, hey, we already found a match. So if I just click the match button, it would move from the bank feed center to the savings register. And because we know it happened, it came from the bank. We know it happened. You can't say, well, that didn't happen. Log onto your bank and you'll see it, So I can open it up and look for it. And maybe if I was looking for the bank detail down here, and this says no description, because probably it was walked in and handed, handed there. It wasn't transferred or something like that. Now, if this was a transfer from their checking, it would say transfer from checking, and it would have the last 4 digits of the bank right there, and you would know. So I'm just going to click the match button, and it goes away. Now, QuickBooks is saying this. It's saying right now at the bank, updated moments ago, this is the bank balance in your savings account. In QuickBooks, you have 800. So there must be a deposit that you've just made in QuickBooks, but maybe it hasn't made it to the bank yet for $600. Does that make sense? And so you're going to look at these every day, and you're going to be like, well, what the heck? There's no $600 deposit, and you're going to go back to this register and figure out what happened right away. And if you go online, this should match there. Now, there may be something pending or something. Banks do things a little different, but you should be able to find this and verify that. Then you go to your register and say, okay, yeah, there's $600. Probably tomorrow it'll come in, and then we're happy. MasterCard. Now, the thing about a MasterCard, Visa, any kind of bank card, they should always, always, always match, because a credit card doesn't have like a check that hasn't been deposited, or a check you wrote that didn't clear. It's everything that happened that day before, because you better believe MasterCard and Visa, they want their money that next day. So everything happens that day. At night, it's all transpired, and the next day it hits your account. So theoretically, if I were to accept all of these transactions here, in QuickBooks should match the MasterCard. But the QuickBooks development team, in their wise and wisdom, didn't do that, because they're developers. They don't know how to balance a checking account. So if I accept all of these, they won't balance, and it makes me crazy. But yours should balance. So this little 7 just tells me, hey, there's 7 things down here you need to accept. And we can go through and look at these. So the first one's interesting. The description is Amazon. Now here's the bank details. See where it says Amazon software. Sometimes if you don't sell things at Amazon, but there'll be different Amazon descriptions, like Amazon seller platform or Amazon, whatever. You bought something. Now this is interesting because look what it says. It says $89 received. And you think, well, why would I receive $89 from Amazon? So I'm going to assume, because I don't know these people yet, but I might go ask them, they probably got a refund. Maybe they bought something from Amazon a couple days ago, and it was we put it in software, and then they decided to return it. And this is the deposit back, because this came right to the bank. It came right in, credit card, right into Amazon software. So I'm not going to put it in income, right? It's going to go to, it's going to go back to wherever the other one came from. And if Intuit was wise, they would have put one in Amazon so that I could show you, but they didn't. So I'm just going to start trying to find they don't have a software category. Maybe they just have, office, some type of office expense. They keep their things very, very. So I'm going to categorize it into office expense. And the bank detail says that. If I had a receipt, I could add it right here. If I wanted to create a rule, I could do that. If I needed to, for some reason, exclude this, like maybe it came in twice, never happens, but maybe it came in twice, I could exclude it. But you always want to accept the bank feeds, because when you go back later on, you want to click on stuff and you want it to say, oh, this matched a bank feed. Don't be going and messing with it. Like, don't be deleting it, because it happened. And if you go into your QuickBooks and you're deleting stuff out of the bank feed and say, well, I already have that. Well, you're kind of defeating the purpose of trying to manage your account so that you can go back and find things, So you always want to accept the bank feeds whenever possible. There's a few exceptions to that rule, and I can tell you about those later. So I'm going to add it. So when I clicked the add button, it went away. It went into the credit card, the MasterCard, and said, I got $84 put back on my credit card. And then it went to the chart of accounts that said expenses, and hopefully balance that account out. So here's one for Laura's laminations, and I'm just going to assume that this is an office expense too, because it kind of sounds like it. Now, if you had this says customer and project, but if we were to turn the classes on, you would see right here the word classes, and you would drop it down, and here would be your programs. This is just clients, because this particular customer, this particular client buys products and then sells them, garden products to his clients. And he could click billable and bill it to the client. You're not going to do that. You're going to have classes here. And when you click on it, you would be like, oh, we laminated a sign for the golf tournament. And you would say, which project is it or which class? And you would put that on it. So I hope that helps. So that's kind of how everything goes. Now, these are, a record has already been found, and that means that someone went into QuickBooks and recorded that receipt already, and it matched it up here. Generally, people aren't going to be that fast to record a receipt. We're just going to wait for it to come into the credit card and then deal with it then, But if this had a receipt attached to it, it would, when you opened it up, this little receipt, there would be a little receipt thing here, and you would kind of see a tiny picture. When you clicked on it, you would see the real picture, and you're like, yes, that's it. And you would match it again. So the match is fine. You just kind of match. And the checking account here, I don't know if you noticed this, but if I open this checking account and I saw this, yeah, I would kind of freak out, because that means that my bank balance is negative at the bank. And I don't know why QuickBooks did that again, but this should alert you right away to go online and see what happened. Did a deposit not get there? Was there a check that didn't get recorded? Somebody wrote, this should alert you right away. And that's the reason you go into these bank feeds, or you have someone go in these bank feeds every day and be like, oh, okay. Because when you start seeing things like this, or things that don't match, somebody's put something in QuickBooks that it's not matching, and we need to catch that. We need to catch it right away. We don't want the next report to go out to the board and then be like, oh yeah, all that stuff didn't really happen, you know, or it's duplicated. You don't want that, you know. So when QuickBooks finds a record in QuickBooks already, maybe you've written these checks to people or whatever, it does this, and you can easily go and just match. So you still have to look though, like look carefully and make sure, and you might see something like this. Okay, 2 records found. Well, what is that? Well, I'm going to click on it, and it's going to say, hey, QuickBooks found 2 expenses for $19.99 for the squeaky clean car wash. There was one there and there was one here. And it's saying it's going to match the closest date, and that maybe that's right. But if it's not, you can go and change it right here. But it's just alerting you that, hey, there's 2 records for squeaky clean. Did I find the right one? Because, you know, QuickBooks is trying to be helpful, but you do have to look at it. And so I'm going to say, well, that came in on 10/8, and that was a debit on 10/8. So I think we're good. I'm going to click match. And then if there was another one on 10/1, right down there was there should have been another squeaky clean car wash here, but of course I don't see it now. Then we would see that one, and it would just say 1 record found, because it would be like that. Now there's a quicker way to do this. So, you know, this is a lot of transactions for, I guess here they really have like 2 weeks of transactions, but you may have a lot. You could batch enter these. So first you would go and you would scroll through, and you're like, okay, yeah, okay, what's that deposit? Okay, yeah, that looks right, that looks right. And if you like all the ones that turn green, if you're like, I'm good, you could go up here. Okay, where's the batch? Oh gosh, I guess you have to do it this way. You have to go, you can click on, and then this little bar comes up. So you can click on all of them, and you're like, yeah, these are all great. I like all these. And then you can click accept, or if you were excluding them, I don't know what update is, but you're just going to accept them, and they batch. They go from here to the register. And then of course your QuickBooks changes right here as well. So that's the bank feeds in a nutshell. You can control what happens over here and what these rules say by going into the rule. Oh, let me create a rule for you real quick. I'll just create a rule for this this silly one right here. Okay, let's do a rental. So a rental is some equipment rental, and I'm going to say this goes to, let's see if we have a rental. Yes, we have an equipment rental. I'm going to choose that because I'm feeling lucky. And I'm just going to say, you know, rental of backhoe. And I'm going to make sure that the vendor is in here. So it's a rental, right? R-E-N-T-A-L, a rental. And it's not in there. Maybe it's the first time I've used it. And I know that's not a capital, but I'm just being. So I clicked add a vendor. So I've got a vendor name. I've got the category. And if you had a class or a program, you would drop down and do your program there. And then I've got a little memo because I rented a backhoe, and maybe I wanted to put more detail on that. Maybe I wanted to add the receipt. And then I'm going to create a rule because I'm probably going to go rent this backhoe like 10 more times this year. So here's the rule. What do you want to call it? And I'm just going to say a rental because, you know, that's the easiest way to do it is by vendor name. Apply this to money out. Now I could say money coming in, but I'm just going to do money out because generally I'm spending money. Checking. I'm going to say checking and my MasterCard because we might have it on, I might use both. Include the following. The description contains the word a rental. So I go back over here, and of course I can't see it now, but the description on the bank feed did say a rental. Now it could say different things, like sometimes Walmart says WM or W-Mart, Wal-Mart, Walmart, all one word. So you kind of have to fill this in if you wanted to fill a condition that said, you know, all or one or any. See how you can do any of these if it said a rental, or if it contained a, maybe there's and this is all set up by their point of sale system. You don't have control over it. It goes to the point of sale system and it shoves that into the bank feed saying this is the terminal that person was at. That terminal says a rental, and maybe there's 2 terminals there, and one says a dash rental and one says a rental. And you'll see this a lot with like Walmart. They do all kinds of crazy stuff. You know, they don't have their systems just set to a certain one. So with Walmart, you have to go down and go all the different ones. And then the transaction type, equipment rental, it goes to a rental. You can automatically add this. That means when it comes into the bank feeds, you're not going to see it. It's going to go automatically to the register. You're like, I don't need to bother with that because it's always going to be rental expense. But I'm going to cut that off because I like to see everything and approve it, kind of like a little bit control freak. And you might be the same way. You just don't want things happening without you knowing it. Because I think for a nonprofit, you need to see everything that comes in. You don't want to get surprised when you go to do the reconciliation and say, whoa, where did all that come from? Well, that's because somebody clicked that auto populate into your register without you seeing it. So I'll click save. And then when I go back to my thing, see where it said, oh, there's two more. It created a rule and it turned it green. And if I click on it, it will say, this is the rule that it applied. So if you go into your QuickBooks and it's applying rules and you're like, what the heck? Go click on this rule and say, delete it or whatever you need to do to modify it so it does what you want it to do. But there's the rule. So the goal is to have everything go rule, or match. And you open it up and you do batch entry and that batches everything and you say accept and off you go. I can't do that now because some of these are still sitting in uncategorized. Anything that comes into the bank that it's never seen before or no one else in QuickBooks has seen, like it's just some little, lady books by Bessie, they've never heard of it, it's going to default to uncategorized expense or uncategorized income. Now this looks like a return, so it QuickBooks gets all excited when it sees a deposit and thinks everything's income. But actually this is going to go back to wherever it came from, right? Office supplies. All right, so you can add and match, and you can manage your rules right up here. Very important. All right, so what do we got? 1035. Chart of accounts. Let's get down there before I forget. So under accounting, chart of accounts. Of course, this is going to look a little different. You're probably going to have many more bank accounts and endowments and things like that. And QuickBooks will tell you how many you've used. So this company only has 44. It'll give you this up here. And then if you go over the 250, it's going to start blinking and wanting you to upgrade to advanced. And if you've got the nonprofit TechSoup version of QuickBooks Online Plus, when you click the advanced version, it gives you the nonprofit TechSoup advanced. And that's the only way. If you've got the QBO nonprofit and you're paying full price and you click advanced, it's going to go $175 a month for you when you click it. So you'll want to know once you get in the TechSoup realm, you're good. It will go and keep you there. So these little things just mean that the checking account is syncing, and you'll see that in the bank feeds. We saw the checking and the savings and the credit card syncing. So when it syncs like that, it's going to give you the balances. It's going to say in QuickBooks and the bank balance, in QuickBooks and the bank balance. And I like to look at these pretty quick and say, oh yeah, this is right, or this is freaking me out. So I would click the register and I would go and see what happened. Is there a deposit? Clearly there's a deposit in QuickBooks that didn't get to the bank. And is it in somebody's car? What's going on? How are we going to avoid that happening in the future? Or somebody wrote a check. They took a check out of the check register and went somewhere and wrote it and didn't tell you. And that's like a problem too, right? Because that would be a pretty big check to overdraw by this much. It'd be a $4,000 or $5,000 check. And this is their AR. And again, if you were to click on that, it would just show you a list of all the ins and outs of AR. You're probably not going to have inventory assets, but you're going to have fixed assets, like you might have buildings or trucks, or you're going to have lots of computers and desks and equipment. And depending on what you do, you might have lots of other assets. And we want all of those assets to be listed. And we also want their depreciation to be listed too. So sometimes people will have, maybe you have more than one vehicle in the nonprofit, you would say vehicles, and it would say like F-150 and F-150 depreciation costs. Maybe you've got an Acura and then an Acura depreciation. Because when you sell that car or it becomes unusable, you want to know how much has been depreciated off of it. So, and most cars and trucks are 5 years. So after 5 years, it's fully depreciated, and maybe you keep it another 5. That's awesome. And then you sell it for $2,000. Well, that's a gain on the sale of an asset, and you have to report it as such. But you would know that if you didn't know where you were with your depreciation. Some people will lump it all together, just say like furniture and fixtures and computers. That's fine. And then they have their little depreciation schedule. Your auditor will have an extensive depreciation schedule for all of your assets. And it doesn't necessarily need to be detailed in QuickBooks. We just want to make sure they match. So at the end of the year, your auditor will say, here's your audit report, and here's your depreciation to enter. And we say, please, can we have those entries so that we can adjust our books to what you have on the tax side? And then you want your books to look like the CPA's auditor's book. So if they said, you had a net income of $3,000 in QuickBooks, you don't want to say we had a net income of $20,000 because the depreciation hasn't been entered, you see. So you want your books to match your auditors. And so we always ask the auditors for those closing entries or journal entries, something like that. And we'll put them in there for you, or you can put them in, or you can ask them to put them in. Some auditors won't do that. They're like, no, we just take the data and do it. We're not allowed to enter information into your QuickBooks file for you. So generally they'll give you a piece of paper to tell you what they did, and we can help you interpret that. Does that make sense? You guys probably are, if you're doing it, you're probably familiar with the end of the year journal entries, but don't forget to ask for them, because they generally, they might not give them to you. They just don't think about it because they think on your end, it might not matter. But, when you're running your reports, your board is going to be like, well, wow, we made $30,000. Where is it? We're like, no, that was depreciation. Like we didn't make that much, or whatever. So then you'll have your liabilities. You're not going to have an equity section. Yours is just more retained earnings for the nonprofit. And then you'll have all your separate income accounts, which nonprofits generally have a lot. You'll have your grants and things like that. And mostly grants are going to be on not really income. They're going to be on the asset side. And then this company has all their expenses like this. And see how you can make sub accounts. And I really like sub accounts because, you've got usually lots of utilities. If you've got water and, maybe you're reimbursing cell phones and things like that, you can put all of that under here, under a subcategory. And I like subcategories because when you're reading your profit and loss and maybe you're printing it off for your board, you can collapse that utilities. If you're just trying to keep it to one page, you're just trying to keep it simple. Sometimes when you present information to a board, especially if you've got a big board, like 30, 40 people, more information or too much information can be, I don't know, just like too much information for the board. Like a lot of them aren't like business. They're maybe they're business people. Maybe they're not like experts at reading a profit and loss or your statement of accounts, So just say utilities, and they're not going to say, well, how much water did you spend? But if you give them all the information, sometimes it's too much, and then you end up with some kind of like conversation that's completely irrelevant to the board and to the books. Maintenance, repairs, so things like this that you could collapse. You can when you create your report, you can just collapse them, and I'll show you how to do that. All right, so that's chart of accounts. Let's talk about how you can, let's say we want to delete an account. So they've got lots and lots of income accounts, and just say we don't do sprinklers anymore. See this little drop down button right here? You can go edit or make inactive. And I'm just going to make it inactive. And are you sure? And you say yes. And then what if in about 2 hours I get something that, oh yeah, I forgot. And then you go, where is it? You're looking for it. See this gear icon? You can move these, you can, create these columns, and you just click this button that says include inactive. And then there it is back again. It will say, there we go. It'll say the word deleted, and QuickBooks really shouldn't call it deleted. It really should say hidden, because it's never deleted. It's just hidden. Because if you wanted to go back to like 2017 and say, hey, look at all the sprinkler systems we did, or they can't just delete it because it happened and there were bank transactions. And if you deleted it, it would throw off your financials for that previous year, right? So deleted, they should just say hidden. And then you can click over here. And again, QuickBooks is trying to decide what you're doing. And it's like, oh, I bet she wants to make that active again. And if you click the button, it just goes to active. But let's say we want to have two expenses. We just want to collapse them because they're the same. I'm just going to say, this is an old, stationery and printing. Like, who uses stationery anymore? So this is an old QuickBooks holdover from like the 80s. And I don't know why they still have it on there, but I'm going to say, you know what? We don't use that. We just have been putting everything in supplies, but somebody popped a couple in the stationery. But I want the word supplies to be here, and I don't want that to be here. So I need to go and merge these accounts. And once you merge, you can't unmerge. So be careful and make sure that you're good there. Now, this one is going to general office, and this one's going to supplies and materials. So I'm going to go edit. Again, click the edit button right here to stationery and printing. And I have to move it to supplies because all the accounts have sub-accounts. You probably noticed, expense, they have a detail type. And when you drop this down, whatever kind of company you are, these are the basic tax codes that you can choose from. So this is an LLC. These are the tax code. These are the 15 expense lines allowed on the LLC. You can go call it whatever you want, but here's where it's going when the auditors do the tax code. It's going, this one, we need to go to supplies and materials. Stationery and printing. I'm going to save and close because I'll show you what I did. And it's just warning me that I'm changing the detail type and I'm changing thus the accounting that's going to the CPA. So now we have both of them under detail type of supplies and materials. Now I can change. What I want to do is I want to get rid of this and I want to keep supplies. So I'm going to change this name to exactly this name. And this one is going to merge into this one. So I'm going to go up here. Again, I'm going to edit. And I'm just going to change the name to, let's see if I can get this right on the first try. S-U-P-P-L-I-E-S. And I'm going to hit save and close and watch what happens. This name is already being used. Would you like to merge them? So this is like huge. You're like, oh, do I want to merge these? Because you cannot unmerge. I'm going to click yes. And then off it goes. And now I have reduced my, remember I had 44? Now I only have 43. So now that one is gone. And if you were to go back and pull a record from 2017, it's going to show up in supplies. It's not going to show up in stationery. So wherever it was supposed to be down here, it's gone. I guess down here in the S is somewhere, stationery. So there it is, deleted. And that's been deleted before, but now it's just supplies. So that's how you merge two accounts. So I know one of you, I think it was the lady with Girls Inc. was like, oh my God, we got all this stuff. You can carefully go through and merge some of those that are actually the same. They have to have the same detail type or it will tell you, hey, you can't merge these because one's over here in cost of goods and one's down here in, blah, blah expenses. And your detail type will look different because you're a nonprofit. They'll sound kind of look the same, but they'll have different, you have many more to choose from. All righty. Gosh, reports real quick. I want to do reports and then I'll open it up because I told you on the theme I would go over reports. So there's a lot of new stuff going on in reports. It's really cool. Now this is the QuickBooks Online Plus account. If you have the advanced account, you have this times like 5,000. You've got Fathom reporting, which is this new really cool integrated Fathom. It's really a software that's integrated into it that lets you export and manipulate the data. Because sometimes you do have, different reporting needs to different entities, and the Fathom reporting lets you do that. Now you got to be good at what you're doing, and you might need to get somebody to help you with it. But so this is just the QBO Plus. I'm not going to get into that advanced reporting. But let's just run a profit and loss. That would be, I think, in nonprofit, it's called your statement of accounts. I don't know the color.
Statement of activity.
Activity, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Statement of activity. And it's just the same thing. They just call it statement of activity.
Just to confuse you.
Yeah. And so we just pick the dates, and I'm just going to do year to date here, and you can drop it down and say all dates, custom dates, whatever you want. There's not a lot of data in here, so their year to date is the same as all date. And now look, if I wanted to go back, this is really great for nonprofits. And I do this with my business too. I'm like, I'm going to do year to date. I'll do like this year. And then I'm going to do, I want to see what we're doing by month. So you click by month. Now this file isn't going to have a lot of data in it. So hopefully it'll at least give me, it'll give me some months. So good. So now I can see, look at what's going on by month. Look how quick that was. you can look real quickly and say, this is our biggest month that we had or whatever, you know, and you can see, oh, I see our income for the golf tournament. We had the golf tournament in August, or we had it in September, but the income didn't hit till October. So you can do some interpretation of looking at the data when you see it this way. And then you're like, what is this 2000? What is this? And you can just click on it and it's going to take you there and show you, oh, that's an insurance agency. You have some accounts payable there. And you're like, yeah, that looks good. But I love to do, I love to use the month one, because you can see real quickly if maybe you haven't spread some expenses out. You know, if a big bill, maybe your insurance bill comes in September and it's $10,000, well, you may need to spread that out over the months or over classes. But some people do that. They'll do a, you know, spread it out, and that's certainly fine if that's the way you do your accounting and if that's the way you need to do your reporting. So you have to figure out what works best for you and what the board's expectation is, as well as the grant people. But I like to see those. I like to see those big expenses moved out across, because if you pay one, you know, workers' comp a year, well, of course it's for 12 months. You should divide it by 12 and slap it in every one of those, because that's really when it happened. And accounting is all about trying to capture true income and true expenses when they happen, and not just when it hit the bank. Does that make sense? So that's a cool one to do. So cash or accrual, you got to know what you're doing there. You can go customize this, all these kind of customization. You can reorder the columns if you don't like them. You can rename them. You can change the columns. You can do, you know, I like to do, so like for budgeting, you can do your previous year. So say you did like your previous year to, you know, to date, you can do a percent of rows. So let me get out of that real quick. And if I get back to just total only and run the report, and each time you click a parameter, you got to click this run report button, or it's not updating. So let me just show you this. If I did percent of income, so your percent of income is going to be what we call in the for-profit world your sort of like your margins. So this just gives you more data, and I want you to go to your reports and just start clicking on all these little things. What's that? What's that? And the more data you have and the more ways you're able to manipulate it, I think the better you'll be able to understand how your organization is spending their money, and maybe how they need to, you know, change it if you're short funds right now.
Hey,
So
Lynn,
what-
is there any way, and this may not be possible in the little sample company we're working in, but is there a way that we can run a profit and loss by class? We're getting a lot of questions about that.
I know. So, I don't think this, let me see real quick if they have classes. So, see, classes is not turned on. So, I can show, I've got in my PowerPoint, I've got a copy of that. And you would, and then this drop down would say, by class, and or actually you would just do it. You would just do the display column right here. If classes were turned on, it would be right here, and that's so cool.
And if you're using the QBO for nonprofits, you will have a report by default built in there called Statement of Activity by Class. It knows that you need it, so it provides it for you by default.
Yes, that's right. Thank you so much. So here's the income right here. Total, you know, I guess this is for the total income. So total income is 100%. And then when you go down here, you can see where you're spending. Like what is your labor cost, which is almost always for nonprofits. That's, I mean, your labor cost. And if you have program cost, you could see, well, my accounting is costing me 6%. And, you know, I'm sure Venture Forward will have some statistics on kind of where you need to be percentage wise. You know, your rent's 8%. Is that good or bad, high or low? I don't know. You know, and they may have some numbers like that says, you know, for a nonprofit, just benchmarks, you should never be more than 8% for your rent, or 40%, you know, wages, or whatever. And everybody's unique. But it will give you some information like that. So I'm going to pop back here to my PowerPoint real quick, because I've got a few more little things. Is this it right here? Yeah, setting up the chart of account. That's right. That's where we left. And let me get it back on over here. I don't know. Okay, come on. Next slide. It's not letting me move. Okay, there we go. We talked about how to merge two accounts. Good grief. I can't get my, my presentation is slow to load on my end here. Sorry about that. I'm clicking away and it's not doing anything. Come on. All right. I don't know, my computer's frozen, so that's just lovely. I was doing way too many things with it, which it knows me now. Okay, there we go. I clicked like 4 slides. Cash or accrual, you're going to have to talk to your auditor about that. You know, cash is the revenue. You recognize it when it happens at the bank. Accrual is when it happens when you create the invoice or you create the expense. Maybe you create a bill in January, but it doesn't get paid till February. Cash basis says it's expensed in February. Accrual basis says it's expensed in January. And accrual base just is a little more true of when the expense occurred, but it's a little bit more complicated to keep up. And so some people just keep them on a cash basis. And in QuickBooks, that little report at the top, you don't have to go make journal entries from cash to accrual. Lord, I see that and I want to scream. You just click the button cash, and then you click the button accrual. Cash, the income is whatever happened at the bank. Accrual, the income is whatever happened in invoices or sales receipts that you had. And if you don't have those, then it's income at the bank. So we talked about pledges have to be counted as they received. If you have a petty cash bank account, you're going to set that up as a bank account in your chart of accounts, and you're going to make sure that you insist on all receipts for that petty cash. So some people have, you know, $100 in petty cash, and maybe somebody in the office is managing that. And every time when you give them $20 to go buy blah, 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 they better come back with the receipt and the change. And it goes back in the drawer with the receipt. You can load that receipt to QuickBooks, and the petty cash account looks just like a bank account. We took money and we went and bought water for, you know, the staff or something. Keep a minimum on hand, and you need to review your petty cash bylaws, because maybe your bylaws say you can't have it, or you could only have 200 on site or something like that. And a lot of people are just getting rid of their petty cash because it's just too easy for it to just get forgotten about. So class tracking. So here it is. So you go to your QuickBooks Online, you click on the gear icon, and then there's on the left-hand side, it's accounts and settings. And there's a little button that says track classes. So there it is, gear icon, accountants, advanced settings, categories. And this is on the handout, so you can go back and find it because I know I'm blind here. Tracking classes. Then you'll see like maybe these are the classes somebody has: admin, fundraising, they have a gala, and they have programs and a community outreach. That's just an example. And they have 5 classes, and in the QuickBooks Online Plus, you're only allowed 40. And so you might have to go merge some or delete some or do something to get those out. So that's what it will look like when you create those. They're the gear icon list and then the class list. But if you don't turn it on, then the class list doesn't show up, and you're like, where did it go? And we talked about the gear icon, the search button already, and the recent transactions. So this is where you'll do your class. So, you know, you can categorize things by customer. You guys aren't gonna, I don't think you would do that, but there could be some strange exception. If you were a nonprofit that maybe only served 2 people or 2 programs, you could, you know, decide to do it that way. So this class, and you would click this little button, and this is going to advertising, and you would say, what is it for? Is it for fundraising? Is it for the gala or the community outreach? And of course, fundraising, you can have 5 different things there, your 5 fundraisers. Now you're not going to put Gala 2019, Gala 2020, you don't need to do that. You just run your profit and loss for the date you want it. So if you want it Gala 2020, you run your report for the year 2020, and the gala funding should fall in there. You know, now you have to look at the gala. If you received money in December and the gala was in January, then you've got to run your report December to February to get the gala funding. You just have to pay attention to when the money's coming in and how it's being classified. So you don't create a class for every single solitary fundraising for every year. These are general fundraisers and programs. Generally, people go do them by program. I know the theater center, like you have, you know, different plays that you put on, and so they do create them by plays because the play is like all encompassing for like, 6 months, and then it goes away, and then up comes another one. So that would be an example of when they would do it by maybe by play, because you've got all the props and the expenses and the everything going on there, and then you want to have the ticket sales tied to that, so that you can reasonably say, yes, this was a successful program. We still made money, despite COVID. so that's how the classes work right there. And this is a sample statement of activity by class. And so this company has, admin, they have fundraising, gala, they have all the different things. So I had to just create this in that landscaping company and to do this, and it was a pain. So of course I don't have a lot of data in here, but over here we have not specified, and that should clue you in. You could, if this was live, you would double click on this and say, oh, I forgot to add that income over here to this fundraiser. And that's why you should run this report every month and see what's in the unspecified, and see, is it just general overhead, or does it need to be allocated? And then you would open it up and you would drop the drop down menu to class, and you would class it wherever it needed to go. If it was something that needed to go to 2 classes, you could class one, $500 here, create another line, do the same thing. Maybe it's advertising and it goes to a gala, then it's advertising and it goes to the golf tournament. And you can do 50% to each, or whatever it is. So you can divide it out if you need to as well. So I'm gonna hit through this real quick, and I know I'm running over because that's just my way I do everything. So if you can stay with me, great. But if you need to drop off, I get it too. And for y'all for attending, for people who need help getting onto QuickBooks Online, just call us and we'll do a 30-minute consult on what the best way is for you. Sounds like there's somebody that needs to move from QuickBooks to QuickBooks TechSoup. We'll talk to you about that and help you make arrangements for that. So 30 minutes free. Just give me a call or give me an email. Ash will put our email in the chat there, and you can just email us and we'll talk to you and just help you figure out how to get there, because everybody needs a little help nowadays. So the functionality of bank feeds, we talked about that. There's rules there, and you could reorder these rules. If for some reason you end up with a hierarchy of rules, you can reorder them and have one hit first, and then if that one doesn't work, then it'll hit the second one. We did the bank feeds. There's other preferences when you go to that gear icon in the settings account. So you can look, and if you want different, customer labels, you can label them different things, or the number format, how you like it. So that gear icon and that setup is really helpful, and it does help you figure it out. These are shortcuts. Again, these are in your handout. You can take a peek at it. This is the QBO app. If you have QBO, you have this for free. Go to the App Center, download the QuickBooks. It'll be the one with the round logo. The other one says QuickBooks, like for, I don't know, entrepreneurs or something. Don't do that one. Just do the QuickBooks one. You log in with your information, and up comes this right here, and all your information is in there, and you can snap pictures of receipts. So you would click this plus button, and then it would say, what do you want to do? And you click sell, or I guess receipt. Actually, now it's, receipt capture. There you go. And then you just take a picture and off it goes. So that's the cool thing. You can connect all kinds of nonprofit donor management systems. Method, Timeful, some of y'all use these. They do sync with QuickBooks. You may or may not want to sync them because it may fill your QuickBooks up with stuff you don't want. And so we can talk to you about that. And time tracking, if you guys are not time tracking, you need to have a place for your employees to clock in and out. This is the worst mistake that nonprofits make. I don't care who you are, you have got to have a time tracking system. You can't just say, what doesn't matter, everybody's on salary. Well, guess what? Just because you're on salary doesn't mean you're exempt from overtime. Overtime, almost all of your employees are going to be non-exempt. I mean, you're going to have to pay them overtime, unless they're a director or something like that. But probably most of them don't meet those parameters. You've got them on a salary, and who knows where they're working. All it takes is one person to go complain. Well, I went and volunteered this weekend at the walk, and then I worked 48 hours and nobody paid me. And guess what? You got a labor audit. The Tennessee Department of Labor is auditing nonprofits like crazy. It just breaks my heart because I'm thinking, oh, these are just people trying to do good, but they are nailing them and they don't have any backup. So if an employee says, I work 50 hours a week every week for 2 years, guess who they're going to believe? Because you have nothing. So get a time tracking system. T-Sheets is a good time tracking system. If you use Paychecks, they have a time tracker. It's great. If you use the QuickBooks online payroll, the middle one, it's called the core or something like that. There's a cheap one, and then there's the core, and then there's the one with the human resources. If you do the middle one, it comes with T-Sheets. It comes with a free time tracking. So you need to time track, and that helps you with your payroll. They log in on their little app or on their phone or on the computer. They can write a note of what they're doing. And then that way you can also track what programs they're working on. You can actually give them programs to click and how many hours they worked on that program. Goes right into your QuickBooks, and it creates those classes and those wages. It disperses those among those programs. And you can, it just takes a little while to manage that, but once people pick it up, they really like it. And you have a way to cover yourself if someone says they're working overtime. You have to watch out if your employees are volunteering for you too. Some people think that it's okay to have employees volunteer on the weekends because, oh, we're a big, no, they can't do that. If they're an employee, you need to get it in writing if they really want to volunteer at something, because by law, they're working for you, for the nonprofit, and they are supposed to be paid. And so that's the way the law is going to view it. So you'll need to get it in writing, or you're just going to have some type of exception, or give them another day off and have them come in to volunteer. You can't just use your employees, for 40 hours and then use them to volunteer as well. It doesn't work that way. So what's new in QBO? There's all these tag features. There's new improved banking feeds, the bill pay receipt. You can upload your bills and you can put it right in the bill pay to pay them. There's multilingual invoicing. You can edit changes and titles on the reports column. I didn't show you that, but you could, if you wanted it called something else because somebody wants it called something, you can go in and manage that and call it something else. You can make notes on there, like this is a temporary holding place because we don't have the data yet for this, but you need to report it to the board. You can write a little note on that line. It's kind of cool. Bank statement auto fetching. So if you're with one of the bigger banks in town, it will fetch your auto fetch your bank statement and put it right into QuickBooks for you. We love that because then we don't have to call our client and tell them to send us the bank statement. We just open up QuickBooks and there it is. So that's pretty cool. New digital banking. So digital banking is coming. You're not going to write checks anymore. You can do everything digitally. There's new digital banking. It's called like Relay FI, and they do everything digitally. You can do everything you do at a regular bank, but you can do it online, and they don't disconnect with QuickBooks, and they have a better interface and a much improved interface than like Bank of America or SunTrust or anything like that. So it's online banking is coming, and people don't use checks and stuff anymore, like old-fashioned ways of writing checks. I know people still do it. Nonprofits are the worst. Nonprofits and churches are the only ones that like write checks anymore. So just try to get in the habit of, if you can, use the bill pay feature at your bank, use the bill pay feature in QuickBooks, pay it online, pay it with a credit card, get your points, get whatever you can to pay those bills without writing a check. If a check is mailed and it's lost, it just takes a lot of time and effort on everybody's part. You've got to pay sometimes to have it, have it, whatever they call it, not escheated, but, stop payment on it or something like that. And then you got to send another one. And it's just a lot of work. And checks aren't cheap. You can't buy cheap checks because people will just erase it. And, they go and write whatever they want on it. They just erase it and write whatever they want. So check washing is very common. And it's just easy for nonprofits to get caught up in that because it's like, well, we're a nonprofit. I want them to have a check. No, you can ACH it. And almost always you can ACH it for free with your bank or with the merchant service account or with Belio, which is in QuickBooks. So just think about all that stuff, and then just think, get your real-time cash flow going on. This little model here, you've got your accounting software in the middle. You got your merchant services coming in, your credit card, your payroll, timekeeping. We already talked about how your receipts can go in. If you have some type of inventory system or maybe classifications, job costing, which is just basically costing out your programs, your bookkeeping, your CPA. So your cloud accounting is where you're going to want to go. If you're on desktop or you're thinking, I don't know what to do. Yeah, you're going to want to go to cloud accounting. All right, so that's it. I know the last 8 minutes is really a lot. Thank you for hanging in with me, but I am here, I can be here for the next 15, 20 minutes and answer questions. And I appreciate